Welcome to my Senate prediction for the month of October, so let's start. And there we go. So first of all, before I talk about Alaska, I'm gonna talk about Utah and Missouri. Those are the two closest safe states. So I see Eric Schmidt winning there by just above 12%, while in Utah, I see Mike Lee defeating Evan McMullen by around 16 to 18%. And for Alaska, it's a battle between Murkowski and Chewbacca, who is Trump endorsed, and it's really looking good for Murkowski since ranked choice voting will help her quite a lot. And the polling shows this, as you can see, and I'm not too sure what the margin will be for her victory, but no matter what, the GOP will win here. And now for another kind of close state to being a safe margin. For Florida, Rubio is running for re-election against Val Demings, the Democrats, and the polling has been a bit iffy in some ways. I still think Marco Rubio will easily win re-election by a margin of, I'm going to say 9 to 11%. Val Demings is an okay candidate, but Rubio will win here almost no matter what. Furthermore, let's talk about Washington. For the Senate race in Washington, it's Perry Murray against Tiffany Smiley, and this could be one of those races that is more closer than anticipated, but it could also be South Carolina 2020 in the Senate race. So as you can see, the polling does favor Murray to a certain extent, but Trafalgar, it's been a bit iffy in this cycle, but they see Smiley being really close, while for other pollsters, they see Perry Murray barely breaking into the 50s or late 40s, which is not that good, but I still think Murray will win here by a likely margin. I'm not too sure what that margin will be in all honesty, but I'm guessing 7% to 9% is quite a fair take. Moving on to the race in Colorado. This is Michael Bennet running for re-election against Joe O'Dea, who's trying to run more of a liberal Republican sort of campaign, just like kind of similar to what Cory Gardner used to do. So polling wise, O'Dea has taken a bit of a dip just around the time of the Libertarian candidate, which is interesting, but this is what it gets a bit iffy. But what I think will occur in this Senate race, I'm going to say Colorado goes for Michael Bennet by 6 to 8%. I think the Libertarian candidate will hurt a little bit the Republicans here, but easy win for Michael Bennet. And now for the more likely states that could maybe drop down to lean. Starting off for North Carolina, it's Ted Budd who's trying to take over Richard Burr, who's retiring, against Sherry Beasley, the if I'm not mistaken, she was the Supreme Court Justice and Chief Justice in North Carolina. So the polling, let's go right there. It's been quite unique because she has got more momentum, it seems, from the polls. Still a lot of undecided voters, so who knows what happens in this race. But I think Ted Budd is barely able to win here by a likely margin of 5 to 6%, but I might change this down to lean if the Libertarian candidate does better than expected. So moving on to the race in Ohio. Ohio's another race that could drop, so to a lean margin, it's Vance who's trying to take over Rob Portman, who's retiring, against Tim Ryan, the House representative in Ohio, of course. The pollsters are quite unique because they're saying Vance is not in a good spot, and this could be surprisingly close, I'll say it. But what I think happens is the undecided voters will go to the Republican Party and JD Vance to some extent. I still think Vance wins here barely by a likely margin of 5 to 6%. I still think that occurs, but I think, to be honest, both of these races could drop to a lean margin. But for now, likely are just barely. And now for New Hampshire. This is a change since Don Baldock won the nomination as in the Republican Party, and he has shown to be more prone to gaffes. He's trying to cozy to the middle, but yeah, it's not looking too good, as by the fact that a lot of these polls are showing Maggie Hassan early 50s in a state like New Hampshire is not that good. For the GOP, I mean, the undecided voters are probably gonna a split 50-50 since Bulldog is not the greatest candidate by the GOP, which is why I see the Democrats winning in New Hampshire, just like Ohio and North Carolina, just barely by a likely margin, which is a change from last time, which goes from lean D to likely D. And that's it for the likely races. So as you can see, Democrats at 47 while the GOP is at 48 seats. And now for the lean races in this cycle. So for the first one in Wisconsin, I think Wisconsin is one of the few ones that could go from lean R to likely R, depending on things. So it's Ron Johnson, incumbent Republican, against Mandela Barnes, the lieutenant governor under Tony Evers. So the polls, it used to look better for Barnes, but the polls are showing that it's getting better, which is odd. I still reckon that Ron Johnson is going to get a lot of these undecided voters. I'm not too sure by how much he wins, but I do think he will win yet again by some small margin. I think I'm going to say 4% to 5%. I think it's narrowing down, and it's not looking that great for Mandela Barnes. But yeah, Ron Johnson win here. And now for the race in Nevada. Nevada is a must-watch state in this cycle since Masto is the incumbent against Adam Laxalt, one of the better GOP nominees in this cycle. So the reason why I think you should look out for this state is that this could very well be the time that it actually flips for the GOP, but who knows really. It depends on the Latino vote and so many other things. But as you can see in the polls, Adam Laxalt is crushing it, has a streak of winning almost all these polls recently, and with the undecided voters probably going for the GOP, it's not looking that good, and shows that Cortez Masto is one of the most endangered Democrats in the Senate, which is why I do think Adam Laxalt will win here by a lean margin of, I'm not too sure. I think it's barely a lean margin of 1% to 3%. I think that's pretty fair to him. And as you can see, that's it for the lean races. So all the races following are basically true toss-ups to a certain degree. So Democrats 47 seats, Republicans at 50 seats. So for the high tilt race, in my opinion, that would be Arizona. So Arizona is Mark Kelly against Blake Masters. Mark Kelly, who won in the 2020 special against a weak GOP candidate, that being Martha McSally. And this time around, Blake Masters, a Trump-endorsed candidate. Oh no, not this right now. So I was saying, the pollster. Yeah. Let's just go to the pollster. So polling-wise, it's really up and down, up and down. Mark Kelly. The pollsters are saying that he may win, but the undecided voters are going to decide this. And the debates, don't forget about the debates. That's going to be key in these close races. But because of the cycle and everything going on, I don't think the McCain Republicans, as long as Blake Masters doesn't have a huge gaffe, the McCain Republicans are not going to turn out to the extent that they did for Mark Kelly in 2020, which is why I do think I think Blake Masters will barely win here by a margin of 0.75% and flipping this seat. And now for the true, not the true toss-up, I think Georgia. There's been a lot of news for Herschel Walker and scandals, so let's start off for Georgia. So Warnock is facing Herschel Walker, and Herschel Walker is in a lot of problems recently with scandals, with some other stuff I won't say. You can check out my community post on that one. But as you can see, Walker is tanking in the polls according to them, which is rather interesting. So I'm waiting for other pollsters, but as you can see, a lot of these have Warnock winning just barely, and Herschel Walker is just hoping to God that Kemp is able to carry him. But my opinion on this is that it's going to go into a runoff, and I think at first you're going to see Herschel Walker be winning in the runoff. In the general happening in November, but it just narrowly goes to runoff where I see Warnock barely winning by a tilt margin because of these scandals. Bear in mind the debate is not even happening, so we might even see more gaffes by Herschel Walker, which is why I see Raphael Warnock winning re-election and winning Georgia in the runoff, most likely by 0.5%. And now for in my opinion, Georgia is not as much of a true toss-up compared to Pennsylvania. So for Pennsylvania, so this race is Dr. Oz against John Fetterman, the lieutenant governor, against Trump-endorsed candidates. 2016, this was an easy win for Pat Toomey, who is retiring, by the way, which is why Dr. Oz is the GOP nominee. So this has really taken more, and just looked more like a toss-up. So the polling, it's, as you can see, it's neck and neck at the moment. John Fetterman has dipped slightly, according to the polls. Bear in mind, yeah, Dr. Oz is now leading, but there's still a lot of undecided voters. So, and this is a red midterm, so a lot of these undecided voters, they will go to Dr. Oz. And Oz has showed that the base is gathering behind him, alongside him gaining momentum and support in the polls slowly over time. And this keeps up the momentum, will look good for him. But for Fetterman, his main issue is that his campaign has not been as good. But bear in mind, this is due to the fact that his stroke has affected his campaigning quite a lot. But what I think will occur, it depends on the debates, but as of now, I do see Dr. Oz barely winning by a small margin of 0.25%. Since the party is uniting behind Oz, and he's keeping most of his suburban voters' numbers at the moment. But this is a true toss-up still, in my opinion, but Oz barely leads at the moment. And as you can see, the Republicans won 52 seats against the Democrats 48 seats. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video.